Hello and welcome back to another episode of Danny's Diary. Danny alongside me here in Ireland. Come over to see you, Danny. Off the back of a successful trip to Cheltenham for you, you bagged in another winner.
Yeah, it was fantastic. You know, the Arkle is the top level of novice chases all season. They all meet in Cheltenham, and for Cargeese to come out on top, you know, she showed how tough she is, how good she is to jump, and you wouldn't know she could be a champion chase contender. Arkle winners have a good record in it. You'd love to see her going on to do something like that, but she's given me some great days. I think that's my second grade one on her, so yeah, nice mare for me.
Brilliant, and the footage has come out as well from the side of that. It's absolutely incredible in the final stages.
That's it, you know, it just showed how easy Kopek was coming into the race, and then the good jump for Cargeese at the last to keep herself in contention. Kopek gave the nod and I slipped away up to the finish. Who knows what would have happened had Kopek have got a clean jump at the last. I think I would have battled with him all the way up there, but on the result on the day, I'm happy.
Brilliant. Off the back of a successful preview, you tipped up a few winners as well with James. In our Cheltenham preview, we thought we'd come and preview the races at Fairyhouse for the Irish Grand National Festival coming up, and of course the Aintree Grand National. So we're going to look at a couple of the grade ones there and some top horses which we suspect will turn up for it. We'll look at the grade one Honeysuckle Mares Novice Hurdle first. Of course, Bambino Fee was a big disappointment for the Mullins team that week, and she looks like she might run here.
Yeah, you'd think she's probably going to go to Fairyhouse. I suppose, what way do you look at it? Do you think Old School Outlaw had a hard race in Cheltenham, will do well to bounce back, where Bambino never really got competitive? Will she be going to Fairyhouse fresh? She just disappointed me. I thought she was the banker of the week in Cheltenham. She has to prove it to get back. I think, you know, Old School Outlaw is probably a good bit more solid going into the race. She ran to a decent level. She's only beaten a length, but you know, looking at the prices, I wonder, you know, are the third and fourth from Cheltenham and the Mares Novice, are they the two that represent value in Fairyhouse? 5-year-old Place de la Nation, Gigginstown mare, and the 4-year-old I Rode Charme de Foi. You know, if they can repeat that form again, I think with the weight allowance, a little bit of a nice ground, she's a fine filly. Charme de Foi stepping up to 2.5 miles could suit her. I think she, at an each way bet in the race, she could come out on top.
Brilliant. I think a wise man once said that whenever you get the hype around a horse like you did with Bambino Fever, that they're never wrong about the horse. It may be just the day being wrong, and Willie and Paul have combined to have the last 4 winners of this race, so she could well bounce back. She
could well do, and you know, that I suppose I haven't heard of a reason for the bad run, so you know, maybe it was just the ground on the day. It was after she'd been beat that the decision was made on fact to file not to run later in the day as well, so you know, back a little bit more of give in the ground around Fairyhouse, and you could well see her at her best and come out and win, but I just have a slight question mark for the poor performance in Cheltenham still.
Yeah, another one I wanted to mention in that race was Colin Murphy. There's a story in the Racing Post that he can't wait to take on Gordon and Willie with his horse Zanouche, who's won a couple of nice races and won a grade 3 at Limerick last time. What sort of chance do you think she would have?
Yeah, she's definitely progressive. I think I was second to her in Navan on a filly of Willie's, Poetista. So, you know, if she can keep improving, I think maybe on form that she's seen so far. She's been good in winning, and you can't do any more than that, but probably needs to step up a little bit more to prove she's that good to be winning a grade 1, but the potential is there.
Brilliant. That's a fascinating race to kick off the weekend at Fairyhouse there. And there's another good one as well with the WillowWarm Gold Cup. A horse you know plenty about. He won him twice this season. Capture Pike. He's been saved for this. Missed Cheltenham. Does he just win?
I think he's a good chance. He's been very good to me. Won beating an odds-on shot Salvador Mundy in Thurles, and came back nicely to win in Punchestown. He was tough that day on ground that he probably wouldn't be seen at his best on in Punchestown when he won, and you know, he seems to be stepping up all the time. I think the form is probably makes him a deserving favourite for the race. Yeah, he's the one you'd want on your short list. I wonder, looking at the race, is Paul going to come and rob him from me? And then going into Punchestown, Predator's Gold was favourite and finished third in that race in Punchestown. Now, I wonder if Predators lines up here. I think he's looking round about 20 to 1 at the moment. I don't think there's that much of a difference between the two. I don't know if he's guaranteed to go there, Predators, but he's not qualified for some of the nationals. He's only had 2 runs over fences, so this would look his likely next target. And while Kappa's been very good to me and I'd love to see him winning, at the prices now, he's gone quite skinny because of his performances, and I wonder from a betting angle, does the value lie with Predator's Gold?
I just wanted to ask you before we get into a few of the other contenders. He's been played late the last twice you won on him. He's got a fair turn of foot.
He has, and he's well able to quicken, but I think, even if it was a race where there was no pace on, he'd be quite well able to jump out and bowl along in front. It's happened the way it is. I don't think he has to be ridden particularly in that way, but he's very slick jumper. Fairyhouse at Easter, you've got to remember they put the third fence in going down the straight, so you need a good jumper late on there, and a lot of his strengths are going to be seen to good effect around Fairyhouse.
An English horse is probably going to line up, trained by Fogel O'Brien, 6 Mile Bridge. You were quite warm on him and you had a lot of respect for him ahead of Cheltenham, but he was a non-runner there. He's already a Grade 1 winner this season. How do you sort of see his chances going back right-handed like he won at Sandown?
Yeah, I think, Sandown is a stiff jumping test with a climb to the finish as well. I think, it's definitely... He's got a big opportunity here, and the fact that he didn't run in Cheltenham probably leaves him a little bit fresher coming in here. I thought he would have ran a big race in Cheltenham and they decided not to run on the day, but I suppose you're taking on Willie Mullins with the likes of Cappinger Pike and that, who sidestepped also is coming here. So it'll be interesting to see. He's a deserving Grade 1 winner. Kitzbühel exited early in that race in Sandown, but he jumped and he galloped. That's what the test is going to be for him here. I don't know the ins and outs of his form, having not ridden against him, but on paper it looks very solid, and I think he'll turn up and give a good account of himself.
And one final one I wanted to ask you about, that he's in the early entries of races, Jimmy Desai, who he won on his Chasing David but hasn't quite had the spark since. Has anything come to light with him?
No, I've seen him at home. He looks in good shape. He disappointed. I rode him in Limerick against Final Demand. I thought that day I would have had a big chance of making a race of it with Final Demand, and I was beat before it started. And in Leopardstown as well, he just didn't look comfortable before he took maybe a little bit of a tired fall at the last, but he was beat a long way out. I wonder, will you see more of him getting back to his Coral Cup performance on a bit of nicer ground? He's not the biggest horse in the world, so I wonder, as the ground starts to dry out, will he be one that'll have more scope to jump a fence? The ability is definitely there, and he was one of the ones that won back in November before the heavy rain really came, and I wonder, did that slow winter ground we've had in Ireland curtail what he's done so far this season? He's an interesting one to see. I think better ground could give him a bit more power over a fence.
Brilliant. It's going to be a good race. Of course, one you won before last year with Spindleberry. But we'll move on now to the Irish Grand National, which takes place on Easter Monday. And there's quite a few British runners in here, and I'll see how they sort of fit into your assessment. But there's been a lot of money for this Jukebox kid. He was a Reynoldstown winner at Ascot, but you poked out one quite early for us, of Argento Boy.
Yeah, I suppose Argento Boy was an early pick, and the sharpshooters that listened to the diary early on would have got double or triple the odds. Now he's in there to 6-1 now, 6-7-1 favourite, and I know we spoke about the profile he's got, but I wonder at his price now, I don't think there's value in it. It's a fair assessment of what he is, and I think he was coming on the same form line as the likes of Aya Maximus, but at 20 and 25, 33s, I think we'd picked him. I thought there was value in that, but I don't think, as a betting prospect, I don't think there's value in the price now. So I'll be looking for a few others in the race. The Jukebox Kid, Ben Paulin had a great year. He's going to be in there off a nice weight as well. Is he maybe exposed? There was one a bit further down that I thought is maybe under the radar somewhat still. Probably has to improve. Say to Chance. I'd won on him in Gorn in a ding-dong finish where he was maybe a head or neck in front of King Alexander, who ran a fine race in the Novice Handicap at Cheltenham. He went back to win a Grade 3 in Thurles. Paul rode him there. This is going to be a step into the unknown with the trip, but he settles well, he jumps. I think, looking for one as an each-way bet in the race at value, I'd be steering towards Say to Chance. I don't think Argento's boy's chance of winning has dropped any more since we tipped him, but the price is just not there. At the prices now, Say to Chance is the open one.
The Shrewies are definitely find you in there. Brilliant. And just a couple more of Willie's down there. Lecky Watson, he's a Grade 1 winner, and he could line up here. I suppose he's got the class to win this race. He's
got the class to win it. Won the Novice Chase in Cheltenham. I would imagine he's likely to go to Aintree, but he will have the option of both. And yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I would think he's going Aintree, and does his jumping leave a bit to be desired? He probably needs to jump a little bit faster. The ability is definitely there, but I'd like to see him jumping through a race a little bit faster. But again, when you step up to these extreme distances, the jumping tempo is slowed down a little bit more, which will be favourable for him.
So 2 selections for you in the race. You'll go with Argento Boy, who you flagged up weeks ago, and Set a Chance at a big price each way.
They're the two I think will be the big contenders in the race. This year, the Irish Grand National is going to be very important for Willie Mullins. Gordon Elliott is, I think, between 300,000 and 400,000 ahead, and were Gordon to get a result in the Irish National, it'd put him in a position to really keep the pressure on Willie going into Punchestown. Willie's traditionally has a great Punchestown, but I'm sure Willie Mullins is going to be wanting a result in the Irish National just to balance the playbook somewhat.
So moving on now to Aintree, which has come quite close after Cheltenham again this year, and it's quite a weird position for Willie to be in, because it looks like the British title's wrapped up for Dan Skelton already. How do you think Aintree looks for him? Is he going to have plenty of runners there?
I don't think Willie is going to send as many as he would have in the last couple of years. The last 2 years, the English Championship was still within reach. I suppose last year, without the Grand National result, it might not have happened. But this year, I think Dan Skelton has definitely slipped and gone away. He's broke the 4 million barrier himself this season, which is an unbelievable achievement for him. And then with Gordon Elliott putting all the pressure on Willie in Ireland, I think the Willie Mullins team at Aintree might not be as big this year, and they'll be attacking, the home races, Fairyhouse, loads of prize money, and the Punchestown Festival as well. So probably a consolidated team for Willie Mullins and Aintree, I'd imagine, this year.
He will have plenty of runners in the National, which we'll get into shortly, but we just wanted to look at a few of the Grade 1s. We're doing this ahead of Entry, so we're just picking Danny's thoughts on some of them. But in the Juvenile Hurdle division, the British have been pretty strong this year. Like Maestro Contivus, Dan Skelton, he was a framer in the Trump, and Manella Study as well ran a big race. But I thought Salma Devari might be the one to head the Willie Mullins team in the 4-year-old Annivesary Hurdle.
Yeah, definitely could be. Willie was very strong in the Triumph in Cheltenham, and often, he's come back to Aintree with some of the fillies. Cargeese, Mercia were ones that, were hitting the frame and banged there as well. Selma Devary will be getting her allowance. She's a good jumper. That run in Leopardstown behind Narciso Haas is probably still as strong a form as you get anywhere within the juvenile division, and if she can reproduce that, I think it'll suit. She wears a hood, she's quite free running, and the fact that Aintree is a flat track that they usually go a strong gallop, I think could really play to her best attributes.
Brilliant. And another race on the first day which is quite attractive is the Manifesto Novices Chase. The winner of the Cheltenham Novice Handicap Chase, Meet Me by the Sea, is owned by JP McManus, but there's a couple of Willies in there that ran good races. You rode King Alexander and he was 4th. Do you reckon is that the sort of race you'd step into now off the back of a really competitive handicap? Would you want to try him at the top level?
He could do, I'm trying to think back of horses that won as novices at the handicaps in Cheltenham. One that sticks out is the Shunter. I think finished second in the race in Aintree, but might have started favourite, having been bought by JP McManus a few years ago. And if they're running, to be hitting the frame in the Cheltenham handicaps, you're probably near on a grade 1 horse, and you've got that jumping ability. If you can jump and lie up in a handicap at Cheltenham, the fences come at you quite fast around Aintree. You need to jump well to keep up there, and for a novice, a handicapper stepping up to grade 1 level, it's the ideal place to try it.
And you mentioned a horse that you think might go to the Fairyhouse, but Predator's Gold has been a smart chaser so far.
He has, he's a horse that after winning first time up in Navan looked like grade 1 potential, and does he go for the WillowWarm and Fairyhouse, or this race in Aintree would be an option as well. He travels and he jumps quite well. There's definite potential there for him.
Brilliant. And as I said, the action keeps coming thick and fast on the Thursday at Cheltenham. The Aintree Hurdle, which is after the bowl because we're doing it in chronological order. Of course, Gaelic Warrior won this last year, but I can't imagine he'll go there off the back of the performance at Cheltenham. It might be left to the Britishish with the likes of Protectorate, who's gone well in it before, and Grey Dawn as well. He ran really well in the Gold Cup, I thought.
He did, it was a solid run from Grey Downing. He followed the pace around, and kept galloping strongly up the hill. I wonder, is it a little bit drop back in class from the likes of Gaelic Warrior? Is probably likely to go for Punchestown as well. He's been a grade 1 winner in the past, and I think he could get his opportunity to win it here again. Dan and Harry Skelton are going to be hunting everything they can to try and close out their championship, and I think he's a solid choice. Protectorate, decent horse. Maybe is he getting too old? Each way contender. I think Grey Dawning could be the one you want to follow to win.
Brilliant. It could be the British who win that race then, definitely. But if our Irish mares turn up in the Aintree Hurdle, Lossiemouth and Wood, who had a good old battle in it last year, I'd guess Lossiemouth might go there, but you said she might go to Punchestown maybe.
Well, I suppose just looking at the championship contenders, when you're thinking, where will they go? Where do Gordon Elliott and Willie Mullins need prize money now? And there's a mare's grade 1 in Punchestown. Lossiemouth, I'm fairly sure, won it last year. No, she went to Aintree last year because of the English Championship. So I wonder, will Gordon want to take on Willie there? It could be a one, where championships decide where horses are running. I think that both of those mares could swerve Aintree and head back for Punchestown.
Brilliant. We won't try and preempt that because this is Willie Mullins with the end of it, so we know as much as each other. But on the first day as well, we have the Foxhunters, and you've got a live contender there. Max give us it on the Cheltenham stable tour that we did with her, and she said it would go to Goran. Nebioli goes and wins a nice price as well. The plan is still intact to go to Aintree then?
Yes, Let's Go Champ. He won nicely after we were here the last time in Goran, and that's put him in with a good chance of going to Aintree. He's, I think, around about 10 or 12 to 1. It's an open race, you have to get out there, jump and travel, but I think coming back in trip with big fences is really going to play to his strengths, and he's done nothing wrong so far. Won his point-to-point nicely and backed that up nicely with the Hunter's Chase and Goran. So who knows? He's going to be taking on the ones that fought out the Foxhunters in Cheltenham. It's on the line. probably looks a bit better around Aintree from what we've seen over the last few years, and he's going to be an obvious one to contend with there as well. But I think Let's Go Champ would have a solid each way chance in it.
Brilliant. Just on that as well, you mentioned I think it's Barton Snow that won the Hunters Chase. It was a really cool ride by Henry Crowe.
It was, an unbelievable ride from Henry Crowe. Yeah, it was. I thought ride of the week, how he just played it so late. It's on the line, never does much in front. He didn't want to be a target, and to have the town halls, as they say, to just sit there and wait. Yeah, that was extra special. But he did make a bad mistake at the last. Fences are going to take a bit more respect around Aintree. That would be my question mark on him, where I think It's on the Line finds a little bit more around Aintree.
Yeah, sticking with the special fences at Aintree, we look at the Topham on the second day, and Willie's got a couple in there. Gentleman de Me, who won the race last year, and was a really good winner, and Il Atlantique, who might well take his chance there as well. Give us the verdict on them too.
Yeah, Gentleman to Me was a nice winner last year. They went a strong pace. He dropped well in, and if Solness is to stay in the race, I'm not sure if he will. It would take a little bit of weight off Gentleman to Me. He was top in it last year, and he might end up with 11.6 this year. Are they to keep their chance? Ile Francais is probably another likely one to run. Jumping is his strong suit, and coming back a bit and trip might suit him. So, it's hard to see Gentleman de Me's chance. I suppose if he hadn't won it last year on form, you'd be questioning it. But horses that like those fences, they definitely have to jump up the list for you. Il Atlantique, another one of Willie Mullins's. He's always been threatening to be a top horse, but I think he maybe needs to jump a little bit slicker. I suppose that's the why Gentleman to Me has always really come to the fore around Aintree, and I just have the question mark about Il Atlantique's slick jumping around there.
Yeah, just quickly, I wanted to ask you about Ile Francais. How would you ride him if he was taking one in the Topham?
Yeah, I suppose he looks to be a good jumper, strong galloper and weak finisher. It's the longest run in of the year. You're thinking, is he a James de Burley profile of the horse going into the race? You want to get out and use all of his strong assets, the jumping and the galloping, but you'd love somebody to be tearing off in front of you, that you have a target at the back of the last. I think Aintree is probably the longest run in anywhere bar Galway. Off the top of my head, you're probably best part of 2 furlongs or more from the back of the last. So it's a flat track. First of all, you'd want good ground, but you have to play to a horse's strengths as well and let him jump and gallop. Try save a little bit.
Brilliant. Now we'll take a look at the Grand National, the biggest race of the jump season in Britain, and we've already seen the last year's winner. He's now qualified after his last run. What did you make of it being behind Jerry Colombe there, who it looks like he could be a lively contender too?
Jerry Colombe could have his chance, and he's had the runs, he's going there hard fit. For me, Nick Rocket, it just doesn't fit the profile. He's missed through little niggly injuries, then never anything serious, but he's missed those few early runs. It's just very difficult to do it around Aintree without having a good few runs. I think his target is 5 or 6 runs through the season to reach that level of fitness, and I think you'd have to look at otherwise than Nick Rocket in it. I Am Maximus is going to have top weight. It's going to make it very difficult, but if you're looking at his run in Leopardstown, was he 3rd in one of the Christmas Grade 1, 2nd or 3rd that day, and was maybe ahead of Gallopin des Champs. That level of form has him within reach of being a possible Gold Cup horse. And, going back into a handicap, you think, the modern Grand National, he could carry the weight and be there banging contention.
And he's one of many that of JP Manifesto has got a chance as well. Jaguar, who's just touched off at the festival in the autumn, and Aroko, perhaps disappointed, but he was 4th last year and he's a year older and wiser maybe. Do you think JP could win it again?
I think JP could win it again. The two you've mentioned, Jaguar and Aroko, are they a bit like I Am Maximus? somewhat exposed. The one I'm going to go for, I'm not sure, nothing's been said whether he goes Irish National or the Grand National in Aintree, is the horse of Conor King's, Conor and Dan King, two brothers, you know, small operation at home, and what's his name, Oscar's brother.
Yeah.
I think his run in Cheltenham was decent. All season, he'd been winning grade 2s and running to a decent level, having to jump out, make the running and put all the stamina into the races himself. And he was probably jumping a fraction too well. He went down to the first in Cheltenham, jumped very high, lost position, and was following around probably in a position he didn't want to be. But what I liked about him in Cheltenham was when he was getting a lead, his jumping became an awful lot slicker. He ran on nicely to finish fourth behind Kitzbühel in Final Demand, and in a race like the Aintree National, there'll be a big charge on. He'll get a toe into the race. He looks a very strong stayer, and I think, he's the one that's probably unexposed. If he can jump like he did through the middle part of the race in Cheltenham, of the JP McManus horses, I think he's the one that I'd be having on my side.
I think a lot of people are sharing the same view. I've seen a bit of support for him in the last couple of days, which is interesting. But we are in the stable housing, hopefully, a Grand National runner. He's number 38 as we speak now, blazed the way. How's he come out of Cheltenham? Is it still the plan to go to the Grand National?
He's just there behind us looking out, and I don't know if he's going to get in, so I'd say the likely option is the Ayr Scottish National. Again, probably plenty of distance there, and hopefully if Willie Mullins is busy fighting off Gordon Elliott at home, and it might open up the Scottish National to being a race that's within reach. Had a solid run in Cheltenham, got into contention down the hill and just faded somewhat, but that was behind Johnny who's within reach of being favourite for the Aintree race as well. So the form is quite solid all the way through, and a reproduction of his best form would see him very competitive in Ayr for the Scottish National.
Another one I wanted to flag up that I thought was an interesting one was Banbridge, he's number 3 on the ballot at the moment. He ran in the Ryanair, was 3rd, but this would be a big step up in Tripoli. He's obviously a top class horse. He
is definitely, a King George winner. He is probably a horse that's well able to settle, so trip won't be an issue for him. And the modern Grand National, I think, probably plays more in the favour of those horses with heavy weights as well. I think, he could be a big contender in the race. Who knows what he'll do for his first run around the fences. Often you were looking in the past for horses having their first run at Aintree, because horses come back the second time, they just didn't attack as well. But it seems to be now, Tiger Roll, Aya Maximus, they're able to repeat form again, so it's maybe not as much of an advantage. But he's a contender. I think there's probably better angles for some of the others we've spoke about, but you wouldn't rule out Banbridge.
I'll touch on one more before we get into. I want to do get a line for you on each runner there, which Ruby does really well on ITV. But a horse that I thought, another one that was interesting was Grange Clare West. He filled the frame for James Robinson, our dark horse tipster. He had the trifecta up last year, which paid a fortune, by the way. So stay tuned to his page throughout the week on the Tote blog there with his dark horses. But Grange Clare West, he looked an obvious one after going so close last year.
He did, and probably his form this year was in and out, and it was nice to see him win the Bobby Joe chase so impressively. Went down, made a bit of a mistake at the last, and ran very strongly to the line. And I'd say on the back of that performance, it's likely, I'd imagine, that Paul Townend is going to ride Aya Maximus, but I'd say that performance is making Paul think, and his decision probably won't be made until the last minute, in typical Mullins fashion. He'll have to explore all options, but he's a definite contender at Grange Clare West.
So this is a line on every Grand National runner with Danny Mullins. Number 1, Aya Maximus.
Loves Aintree, has plenty of weight, Grade 1 form during the season. He's definitely for the shortlist.
Number 2, Nick Rocket.
Last year's winner, obviously likes it around there. Has had only one run this year, big negative.
Number 3, Banbridge.
Banbridge, past King George winner, third in the Ryanair. He's going to have plenty of weight. Class horse, I think he has to be on your shortlist too.
Grange Clare West.
Grange Clare West, big run last year. Impressive winner of the Bobby Joe chase on his latest start. I think, yeah, he's got a good chance.
Jerry Colomb.
Nice winner in Down Royal on his last start. Was second to Grange Clare West. Yeah, good run over hurdles behind home by the Lee. Yeah, he's a contender. Maybe has he gone past his best, getting a bit older? Run a solid race. 80 Killor, disappointing in Cheltenham, but he's a horse that's a previous Irish national winner, somewhat like Aya Maximus's route, and yeah, if he bounces back, he has a chance. Spillans Tower, he was a horse I thought would run a big race in Cheltenham in the Gold Cup. Skipped that, and you know, if he gets a little bit of juice in the ground, I think he's got a performance in him to win a very big race. He's going to be an interesting runner. Firefox ran a solid race in the Gold Cup. It was bang there in the Irish version behind Gaelic Warrior. I think, yeah, he's going to be an interesting one. He settles, he's probably a fraction lazy throughout a race, and that's what you want in a Grand National, to come alive late. Monty Star, you know, another Grade 1 horse, Henry de Bromhead's, has been running with respect in all those Grade 1s through the year, and I think at the weights he could have the best chance of the Bromheads team. They do very well at the big spring festivals. Spanish Harlem, a good winner of the Kerry National, was very unlucky in the Thyestes, and you know, I think you could rule out his run in Fairyhouse in the Bobby Joe chase. He just never went that way, and had previously pulled up when coming back to run a fine race in the Thyestes. In there about 11 stone, good chance. Lecky Watson, Cheltenham Festival winner in a Grade 1, but needs to jump a little bit sharper. Champ Kiley, multiple Grade 1 winner, was disappointing on his latest start, just didn't really perform around Tramore. If he gets back to his best, he's a strong galloper and a stayer. He's a contender. Iroko is probably exposed somewhat, part of a strong team for the JP McManus Silks, so yeah, chance, but exposed possibly. Favre de Chandu won impressively the cross-country race in January. Probably ended up with a bit too much weight going back to the festival, and you know, this test will really suit him. He's a good jumper. Is more of a handicapper than a Grade 1 horse. Maybe you need a Grade 1 horse nowadays in Aintree. 3-card Bragg. I think he's coming here with a big chance. Had ran some fine races in the autumn, and the vets report said he blew hard the last day on his comeback run. I think, yeah, this could be a horse that was put away for the Aintree National.
Oscar's brother.
Oscar's brother, big chance of winning the race. A novice that has ran in Grade 1s. His jumping sharpened up in the Cheltenham race behind Kitzbühel. I think this horse has a big chance of winning. Mr. Van Gogh, you know, probably carrying plenty of weight. He's a strong stayer, but I wonder, has the handicapper got a hold of him? High Class Hero has always been knocking on the door for one of these races. Maybe needs to jump a little bit sharper to keep in contention throughout. Stellar Story, solid handicapper. I think as well has reached the limit of his handicap mark.
Beauport.
Previous Midlands National winner, off his handicap mark now. I don't see him being as competitive. Strong galloper and jumps well, but handicapper has him, I feel. French Dynamite, yeah, an interesting horse that seems to pop up. Will probably need a bit of nicer ground, but yeah, it could be a decent chance here for Robacher. Captain Cody, last year's Scottish National winner, on plenty of short lists, and probably the handicapper is worried about him, but for me, has his jumping shortcomings at times. Jaguar won from the JP McManus team, bang there in Cheltenham behind Johnny Who. Chance, but I wonder, is he exposed at this stage?
Percival Lagawa.
A horse that you're always thinking was going to do more than he has. Often jumps slow as well. Oh, I'm not so sure. Gorgeous Tom, yeah, for Henry de Bromhead, had a very poor start in the Hennessy and ran on to be fourth. I think he's an interesting horse at a big price. The real whacker, Paddy Neville, was bang there, you know, in races last year. Cheltenham Festival winner. Exited early in a Kerry National behind Florent Porter. Probably needs to find that previous season's form to be competitive here. Quai de Bourbon ran a decent race in Leopardstown, having pulled up a few times. I think if he gets back to his novice form, he'd have his chance, but you know, needs to put his best foot forward. Maybe Leopardstown was a sign of more to come. Answer the Cave, winner of the Tri-Town around Navan, Terence O'Brien, Johnny Shinnick probably riding it. He's a strong galloper. I think ran a fine race in the Thyestes as well. Yeah, he fits the profile. Could be one to run a nice each-way race. Jordan's was a good novice for Joseph O'Brien. Probably needs to recapture some of his best form, but could be under the radar at the moment. Might need to step up a level. Now is the hour. Was probably fortunate to win the Thyestes, but did jump and gallop strongly that day. Would need a career best. It's possible. Final orders, good cross-country horse. Could be very well in on his penalty from Cheltenham, but is that an advantage of him being very good at the cross-country, or is he going to be thrown in here in the handicap mark over fences?
Marble Sands?
He's won a few handicaps already this year and been well placed. I wonder, has the handicapper got a hold of him?
Panic Attack.
Won 2 big handicaps already this year and looks like she hasn't reached her ceiling yet. She'll be an interesting one at the bottom of the weights.
Top of the bill?
For the Twiston Davis team, second in the national trial in Haydock. Could have a chance at near the bottom of the weights. Johnny Who, he'll be an interesting one to see. Does he make the field? Good winner in Cheltenham and could be unexposed still. Twig, he's won over the national fences before. Jumping around there is going to be a big advantage to him, but I wonder, has the handicapper got his measure? Blaze the Way, he won a nice handicap in Cheltenham in December, ran a fine race at the Cheltenham Festival. Handicapper might have his measure, but lightweight.
Piper?
He's fallen his last twice. That's not exactly your ideal preparation for Aintree.
And finally, Imperial Saint.
Won the Peter Marsh and chased home, blazed away in the handicap chase in Cheltenham where they were behind Johnny Who. Probably looks exposed on what we've seen so far.
That was Danny Mullins on 40 of the possible 34 Grand National runners. If you did enjoy that, make sure you hit the subscribe button. Don't miss any of our videos on the Tote. And make sure you tune in for Danny every day at Aintree. He'll go through all his rides at the Aintree Festival.